Do you feel crazy in your relationship? Do you feel like the relationship that you've been in makes you feel like you're not good enough, like you're not worthy? Maybe you've noticed your confidence that has started to suffer or start to disappear. Sometimes these are just some of the signs that survivors notice of narcissistic abuse. And oftentimes, some of the first question is, what is narcissistic abuse? I don't really understand it. I don't really know like the depth of it. Isn't it just someone who's just obsessed with themselves and just like snapping selfies of themselves on social media? Like, what actually is narcissistic abuse? And what is narcissism? Well, today we're going to break that down a little bit just for you to understand a little bit more about narcissistic abuse. And I do that from the perspective of myself, which is being a narcissist. I'm a diagnosed narcissist that's on this channel to help people understand about narcissistic abuse, how it's real, how it destroys lives, and ultimately how to be able to be set free. I set people free from narcissistic abuse by breaking them out of the trauma bond, the rumination, the intrusive thoughts, the things that keep you addicted or stuck in a cycle or feeling crazy or feeling like there's no peace at all and that you can't tap into joy. That's what I break people out of, being able to actually find that freedom, that happiness, that peace that they really desire. But we have to do that through a process of understanding narcissistic abuse, understanding the stories you believe to be able to be free. When we talk about narcissistic abuse, people are like, what is it? Like, I don't really get it. I don't really know. And there's so many different things that we use to describe it, so many different ways and versions and ideas and thought process to describe it. But what does it actually look like when you break it down in a diagnosable way? The DSM-5 breaks it down into 9 different categories, into 9 different characteristics of things that a person needs to have in order to be considered diagnosable. Now, in this, we're not just sharing these so you can go and diagnose your friend or your partner or anything like that. But it does say, hey, like if this is something you start to see, maybe you need to consider that you might be dealing with having a narcissistic person in your life. Now, as we dive into it, there's 9 characteristics. A person only needs 5. Only needs 5 of these to be considered a narcissist. So all the people that are like, oh, there's not that many narcissists out there, like people, it's just a buzzword, people are making all this stuff up. Narcissism is on the rise, and it's going to continue to be on the rise because of the breakdown of families and because of the breakdown of father figures in families and because of the breakdown of actual honesty in society. You're going to see narcissism become more and more prevalent over the next couple of years because of the fact that people are not willing to just be honest. But instead, it's lie upon lie, manipulation upon manipulation to appear and look a certain way. Social media hasn't helped with this, but to appear and look a certain way for people out there. So what are the 9 diagnostic traits? The first one is has a grandiose sense of self-importance. Example is exaggerates achievements and talents, expect to be recognized as superior without those achievements. And so a narcissist oftentimes is like, I think that I'm the best person ever. And I have all this self-importance. I look great. I am great. Everybody should bow down to me. All this kind of stuff is like, oh, this inflated ego, this inflated sense of self-importance. And so it's not necessarily something that you look at them and they're like, oh yeah, like you should be that important. No, it's more this idea that they just feel like they are, even if they don't have the credibility. Be almost like bossing people around without being a boss or without being the owner, but instead just taking that upon themselves of like, oh no, I'm so amazing, so this is what I'm going to do. The second thing would be preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Now, this is the typical one that you see on social media of like they're obsessed with having a fantasy of them looking or acting or being a certain way. I look amazing, I look pretty, I look beautiful, I'm really hot, like all these kind of things, like very much appearance oriented. But then you also have the piece of it not just being appearance oriented, but being like intellectual. Intellectual narcissists of like thinking like, oh, I'm brilliant, I'm so smart, I'm amazing. And then also these fantasies of love. And now these fantasies of love, these are the ones that I connect with the most because it's like looking for this ideal love, this perfect version of love out there, this Disneyland experience of like, this is what it should be. This is the fairy tale version. And, oh, I have that with this partner. Oh, now I don't have it. Let me find a new partner to be able to find this with. And so you'll see these like preoccupation of like, I just want this to be perfect. And as soon as it's not, because I'm not perfect, then the whole facade starts to break loose. Then you move into number 3, which is believes that he or she is quote unquote special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. And so it's like I'm better than other people, but like only certain people can get me. Like all my previous jobs, like they just didn't understand. They didn't understand what they were letting go. They just kept firing me because of X, Y, and Z. And like all this stuff, like uses excuses to be able to run away from the situation of, nope, it's just you. Like you're the problem. But believes that he's special. A lot of times, like, I think only certain people can connect with me. Only certain people can understand me because of how special I am. Now, are they going to say special? Typically not. But that's the idea, that's the thought process. Then you move into number 4, which is a typical one inside when we talk about narcissistic abuse and NPD, is called just attention. So it requires excessive admiration, attention, this like love, care, respect, like give me everything kind of a thing. It's like it needs to be all about me. It needs to look about me. It needs to be like every single aspect of life needs to be about me. And so it requires this. So you're going to see this with excessive texting, excessive phone calling, excessive like being around each other 24/7. Like you're going to see a lot of this excessiveness happen where they're looking for your validation, looking for your support of them and of the version of them, of the mask that they're putting out there. Then all of this also comes into number 5, which is has a sense of entitlement. Okay, so this, when it breaks it down, an example is unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. So when you hear this, part of the aspect is like, I'm entitled to you, I'm entitled to get what I want, and I'm entitled to get it now and as soon as I want it. And so in thinking through this, a lot of times narcissists want this like immediate compliance. Did you ever have like where you didn't respond to his text fast enough? Yep, this immediate, like you need to be like paying attention to me because I'm entitled to you. Then you move into number 6 with this aspect of interpersonally exploitative. So taking advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. So this is where you run into the manipulation, emotional, physical, sexual. This is where you run into gaslighting, even future faking, because it's like, let me figure out how I can exploit you to get what I want. Let me figure out how I can take advantage of you to get what I want. Now, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You're going to see all different types of things. What do I need to do? How do I need to move you? How do I need to adjust X, Y, and Z to get what I want? That's the end thought, the end goal that a lot of narcissists have in relationship to you. Then we move into number 7, probably the flagship of narcissism that everybody always goes off of, is lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Now, it's crucial here that not all narcissists don't have empathy at all. They're just unwilling to actually acknowledge your feelings and needs. Now, typically it's because it just feels too burdensome, or it feels like they don't want to deal with it because then it means they have to deal with their own emotions. I've been seeing that and finding that out just along my journey. But part of it is just, hey, closed off, because if I don't feel and if I don't like engage with how you feel, then I don't have to be accountable for it. I don't have to acknowledge that I had any cause in that, or that I actually caused the problem that's happening right now. And so a lot of times narcissists will be unwilling to even acknowledge that you're feeling, or unwilling to acknowledge the needs that you have in your life to be able to continue move on thinking everything's fine, everything's great, because I don't have to acknowledge that that actually happened. Then you move into number 8. There's often envious of others, or believes that others are envious of him or her. So like in my mind, it's like walking down the street and being like, oh, that person looked at me. They must like what they see. They must like me. They must think I'm impressive. They must, all this kind of thing. Or like, oh, I'm envious of what that person has. Why can't I have that? Why can't I have this many aspects or this many things or whatever it might be? Okay, and you're going to see this a lot of times in narcissism personality of like, oh, this is what I want. This is what I like. Then you also have number 9, which is shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. And this is where you get kind of like the asshole part of like, I'm just going to be who I am and I don't really care about anyone else. And very, very arrogant, like in your face, like all this kind of stuff. So when you see all these different things at a glance, a lot of times psychologists and different counselors and therapists, they know this stuff, but it looks different in real life. It looks completely different when you're gaslit and made to feel like you're crazy, made to feel insane because you have emotions, because you have feelings. It gets really difficult when it's layered on top and on top of multiple layers of lies, and you have no clue what's right, what's wrong, what's up, what's down, what's true, what's not true, his words, his actions, and you have all this cognitive dissonance of like, I don't know what to believe. He's telling me one thing, but he's acting a different way. All of this stuff that happens in narcissistic abuse makes you feel addicted, makes you feel crazy, makes you feel like you're not good enough for the other person. When reality, it has nothing to do with your worth, but it has everything to do with the narcissist, what he thinks, what he feels, and how he wants to continue to control and manipulate you. And so when you think about narcissistic personality disorder, how many of these traits does your partner have? Out of the 9, and as you listen to this, write them down or leave a comment down below of saying, hey, this is how many I think he might have. And it's good just to do an assessment of him, of you, of anybody in your life that might be toxic, and to try to make sure that you're actually getting clear about the people that you're with and also free. Because if we don't just get you understanding the situation, we also need to break you free from that. If you want to know how I do that on a day-to-day basis, helping hundreds of people, I want you to go to claritychallenge.net. It's a 45-day challenge that we put together to help you break free from the abuse that you've suffered, to break free from narcissism, from break free from the addiction piece in your head that keeps drawing you back to the same toxic person over and over and over again. I want you to know that there's no excuse for narcissistic abuse. Please reach out for help and go to claritychallenge.net today.